Waste. Waste is a huge problem around the world. There's been increasing focus about the amount of plastic waste that is really clogging up the world's oceans, and I think that's a very pressing issue. In fact, I made one of my lessons about that in China when I was teaching there. But I want to talk more about waste just from a personal point of view, not necessarily like CO2 emissions from countries and waste at government or anything like that. Just purely personal here, because I do think a lot of it comes down to personal responsibility. I've never liked waste of any kind, um, and waste can take many definitions. So let me just talk about a few of them. Food. I hate to see food wasted. Um, so I used to be a waiter, and I remember we used to clear tables. I worked at the Dunsall Park Racecourse in Wolverhampton for a while, and it was a pretty busy venue. You got hundreds of racegoers in there, and I remember when we had to scrape down the plates, the amount of good food that was just put out was just sad. Um, I can understand people who have religious objections to food, like they have religious requirements, allergies, or eating disorders like bulimia or something like that. But one thing I've got this, I suppose, tolerance for is just pickiness. Or what I would say is if someone's picky, then I've never understood why they would order food that they're not going to eat. And it's kind of this cultural thing where they think it's somehow polite to leave food. Or another one is going to a party and not eating food. Well, I consider that rude, but what's more is it's just wasteful. I mean, it works both ways, of course. Hosts shouldn't overfeed guests. You shouldn't, push food at people. But, that's just an example. Going to a party, and, it's been a while. But house parties, when you see good food just going to waste, it's sad. Um, and I saw this a lot in China. I saw a lot of good food go to waste. This was perfectly decent food, nothing wrong with it, but for one reason or another. And this is kind of ironic in a country that had the world's deadliest famine, the Great Chinese Famine of 1958 to 1962, was the deadliest famine in human history within living memory. So you would think in a country that suffered so much from that, people would cherish food more, but not necessarily so. And I asked one of my Chinese friends about this once without getting into the deeper political issues, but they said it's because they understood what I was getting at, but their understanding was the logic was, well, people want to show off that they can afford to throw food away, which seemed a bit of a strange logic to me. And it isn't just China, this can be seen around the world. I just, without wanting to preach, I just think it's when people are starving in the world, when Yemeni children are starving to death, it just seems like a travesty for food to be wasted. I mean, I can understand if someone orders something and they ordered too much, and that's it happens. I've done that, but just wasting it for the sake of it, you know, if you feel full, that's fine. It would be silly to keep eating if you're full, but I just don't like to see food get wasted. It's one thing that I don't like. So that's a prominent example, but I feel that everything has to have a purpose. If I buy a pair of shoes, I will use those shoes until they're worn out. I mean, I'm not saying until the soles are flopping off them, not to that extent. But I don't understand multimillionaires who, I mean, it's their money; they can do what they want. But why would you want to buy a pair of shoes every single day? Apparently, Floyd Mayweather, the boxer, does precisely that. He buys a new pair of shoes and wears them, but for every day, just because he can, just because he's super rich. I don't get that. I mean, whether it's showing off or whether it's just a habit, And it isn't just Mayweather. There's others. There's Spain Premiership footballers who just do crazy things with their money, and it is their money. I think it's far too much money, but that's beside the point. But I'm even thinking just on a base level. I think everything just when I get something, if I buy a CD, the CD is made to be listened to. If I um if I buy a newspaper, that newspaper is printed to be read, and so on. Even little things, cleaning up my email inbox, deleting scrappy photos that are not worth looking at, i.e., on a memory stick. The quality is not good. I like things to be tidy. I like things to be ordered to some extent because it kind of stresses me out when they're not. And I wonder if anyone watching this feels the same way. Books, all these books that I've got, most of them I still haven't read cover to cover, but a lot of them I use for reference. But I don't use books for decoration. To me, a book is is written to be read. Um, Recycling. I try to recycle as much as I can. Naturally being an island nation, that's very important in Britain. But just generally, I just don't like to see things get wasted. If something gets bought, if I buy something, it's a commodity. It has a purpose. It's there to be used. Some things are for decoration, but something that is utilized for usage, I'm going to use it. Um, I mean, what other examples can I give? DVDs are made to be watched. I mean, why would you buy a DVD and not watch it? Everything has a purpose. Everything needs to be used in a certain way. Tools, gardening tools, spades, rakes need to be used. Why have them in a cupboard for years, you know, um, rusting away? It's one thing if something gets broken, or if something's not working, that's incredibly frustrating. These things happen, whether it be a technical thing or something else. It does happen, but I would rather that something got broken and it had already had some use rather than it just wasn't working when I bought it. Well, in which case you could get a refund or warranty. But I know people who have things and they never use them, and it's up to them. It's their property. It's not my business whether they do or not. But I don't understand that. Yeah. Let me know your thoughts about waste. I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at this. There's a lot of in my own personal life, it's not for me to tell anyone else how to live, but in my own personal life, for example, clothes. I wear clothes until they're basically, I'm not going to go around like a hobo in rags, but I do like things to be used to serve their purpose. If I buy a t-shirt, if I buy a pair of trousers, they need to be worn, and I will wear them, for their purpose. I think some people will buy clothes purely as a fashion thing and then they'll throw them out. I mean, literally throw them out. People need to know that you can actually put old clothes into a charity shop. I don't know how many people realize this. A lot of charity shops, I know Bernardo's, they actually recycle old clothes. So rather than just throwing out old clothes into a bin where it's waste, they actually get used, they get utilized. So I've been trying to do that more. If I've got socks with holes in them or something that they're not wearable anymore, what they'll actually do is they'll shred it all up and they'll recycle it. I think it's a very good idea. When I was working in Oxfam, they even had a scheme whereby women could donate old bras, and what they done was obviously they would make sure they weren't damaged, and they would wash them, and they would actually use them for projects in parts of Africa where there's a stigma around young women. In fact, there's such a practice as breast ironing, which is a very cruel, painful practice. But a bra is just it's a necessary daily thing that women wear, and it's so that was a project that they used in Oxfam, and there are other examples. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about waste, and in your own personal life, feel free to share how do you try to reduce waste? I try to use things for their purpose. If I buy something, it's because I wanted it, and I'll close with this. I collect things. I collect newspapers. I collect books. I collect interesting coins from Britain and around the world, and you know, I will look at them all. I One reason I don't do video rental or DVD rental is because I don't see the point of paying money when you've got that deadline. If you buy a DVD, it's yours forever. So you can watch it whenever you want. If you rent a DVD, there's like a time frame. That's precisely why I don't use Netflix, because they put a time limit on what you can watch. So I don't like that. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. How do you reduce waste? What's your thoughts on waste? And what do you think we could do as society, as nations, as governments? I mean, there are areas that it just feels like, say you buy a ticket for a concert and you don't go to the concert because you've been busy or whatever. Give it to a friend or give it away to a stranger. Make someone's day. Something like that. It's a waste, you know. But if you may be disappointed you can't go to the concert, but if you give it to a stranger, you're doing a good deed. You're making someone feel good. A fellow fan of that musician. You're brightening their day up. So reducing waste can also, there's little things people could do to make just acts of kindness that can make us all happier. Um, Try to think of other things to add to this subject because I'm sure there's plenty to talk about. Anyway, that'll do for now. Okay, let me know your thoughts. What's your feelings about waste? Do you not care? Because some people don't, and I personally think that's a selfish attitude. Not just even if you live on your own and you don't like your waste doesn't affect other people. I don't really understand how people can be okay with that. I mean, things are whether it be food waste or material waste. Waste. Subject is waste. Um, this could be on a technical level, like I say, freeing up email space, deleting photos that are not worth keeping. Just occasionally when I have a big cleanup, I come across a lot of things. I think, well, I don't really watch that anymore. I don't use it anymore. Put it into a charity shop. That way you're helping the cause, and you're also someone else is going to buy that. They'll get use from it. So, that's a good way to prevent waste. Charity shops are a great thing in that sense. They're a great concept, and it's quite a British thing. I'm not sure how many other countries do that. On my travels, I haven't really come across elsewhere in Europe. There's been a few, but not as widespread as the UK. People tend to look down on charity shops. They tend to seem as a bit shabby. When I worked in the Oxfam I was at, which is now closed, my manager, to her credit, she really put effort into making the place look appealing, like a shop, not like a charity shop, but like a shop. Anyway, let me know your thoughts.